My name is David. I work for Ahrefs. It's an SEO tool that handles the crawling of the internet and has a shit ton of data. Aside from that, I'm working on open source 0.5% of the time there in a styled PPX project, which is just styled components in Reason, but type safe and a little bit more performant. And many other open source projects. Lately, I have been spending a lot of time with JS of OCaml. So yeah, at some point, I might speech all of those in the show. So yeah, that's definitely me. How are you, Gabriel?
Okay, so I'm Gabriel, also known as Fake Nickels on the social media. I'm a script and recently a Solidity enjoyer. I've been building Vana.app, which is a payments platform using the new central bank payment system here in Brazil. I'm also running ECMAScript 2077 with Marcos. It's a script course for people who are interested in beginners. I'm also running some NFT stuff, related stuff. So I'm having fun with blockchain and etc. called Fake Worms Studio here in Brazil. And we are just like experimenting with the tech and putting his script there when we can, and trying to bring more knowledge and onboard more artists and developers to this world and earn a living through it, right? It also, of course, like I said, have fun in the process. And that's basically me. Welcome to emelletv, where we talk about his OCaml, his script, and Reason ecosystems. To ask silly questions, talk casually, and learn from great developers and have fun with handling unit type systems.
Let's go.
Let's go. Welcome, Mr. Camilo.
Hello,
So
guys.
welcome, Camilo. Nice to meet
Welcome.
you. So yeah, if you want to present yourself a little bit,
Okay.
that would be amazing.
Nice to meet you, Dave. I'm Camilo. I am a OCaml developer since 1 year ago. I'm doing some projects in the open source community in OCaml and mostly in the tutorials and education about the language. I think that's the most successful project that I'm doing this time. So I'm very new to the community. I don't know a lot of people at the time now, but I always discussing and going to the forums and everything about OCaml.
Nice, perfect. Cool. So the first question, I think it's a mandatory one. Why your Twitter handle is OCaml? Why you are like fishing people, basically?
Okay. First, OCaml is one of my favorite languages for a lot of reasons, and I think that's a good language for a lot of projects that people can have. And I always trying to present them how OCaml can resolve their problems.
Right.
I think that OCaml is not a popular language right now, and I think it's not because it's not suited for this, for be a main or mainstream language. It's
Right.
just because we have a lot of work to do to build a greater community and present OCaml for more people.
Right. Yeah, amazing. Yeah, we're gonna like ask you a lot of this during today. So before Caml, how was your introduction to developing or I don't know, engineering in general?
Okay, I had 10 years prior to start programming on OCaml. So I worked with a lot of technologies. I started programming in Delphi. That it's not a brand new language, but since then I worked with Java, with Python, with C#, a lot of other technologies related.
Right. And you said that you were very early on OCaml. Why OCaml? How you discovered like the niche language?
That's a fun story because I was learning. I first learned Lisp, and I like a lot of learning Lisp. But I always liked typed languages. So I thought, how would be functional programming typed? So I started learning Scala. And I was really liking Scala, and I was impressed by the type inference that the language have and all these things. And one of my friends, co-produto, or Pedro, came to me and said, "Man, the type inference of Scala is not even impressive." And I say, "What? For me, who is doing Java or C Sharp, it's like magic." And he say, and he said, "No, man, you really should try an ML language." And then I started to look for ML languages for learn something. I discovered that Haskell was ML language, and I hate Haskell till this day.
Right.
So,
Understandable.
so I was looking for other language, and then I found F sharp first, and I
Yeah,
started
it's
learning
natural.
F. Yeah, I started
Yeah,
learning
it's
F
natural,
sharp.
right? Like if you come from the Java or C Sharp world, I think F Sharp, I think it's kind of the natural path.
Yeah, in fact, I was doing some projects that I could use .NET ecosystem for develop. So I found F sharp in the first place because I want a pragmatic way to develop those things I already doing. And when I started learning F sharp, I first thing that happens at I get some tutorial, and that was a simple function, and I copy and pasted it in the terminal. And when I look, it like read my mind, inferring the types, and I was
Right.
whoa. I and then this moment I know this is the language, and I started learning F sharp.
That's the feature that you were looking for, no? Right. Right.
I
And
was
how was
learn
the F Sharp you wrapped to OCaml? How was that done?
yeah, and then I was learning happily learning F sharp, but then it's not a lot of content about it in the internet. I
Right.
found the Eduardo RFS string, and every time I had a doubt, I asked in the chat, Eduardo, I'm doing this, I don't know how to do that, but I never told him that it was F sharp. I said, I'm learning OCaml. Can you help me with this?
Right.
And he always was helping me, and always a little mad about the fact that I used a lot of members in the code, but it's because
Right.
F sharp use members for C sharp compatibility.
Right.
And sometime then, Eduardo asked to me, "Man, you want to start to work in some of my projects that I have outside of work here?" And they say, "Okay." And they say, "It's in OCaml." You say, "Okay." Then I transitioned from F sharp to OCaml.
Right.
And it was okay. It's almost are very related languages. No, there are not a lot of difference or anything like that.
Right. Yeah, we're
And
going to talk about the differences between F Sharp and OCaml here, like more deeply later
yeah,
today. So keep those in your head. Cool. So you were like one of the Padawans of Eduardo, let's say,
yeah.
right? So how was the process of learning OCaml? Like from a person that just tries to learn it online, what kind of resources did you use, or how hard was that?
Most of the sources when I was learning was blog posts that I found everywhere in the internet. Most of the time, what I like when I'm learning a language is make a step-by-step first roadmap, and
Right.
then I look where I can find this info. And most of the time, the things I was learning was even in F sharp still, but was easily translated to OCaml. So
Yeah.
I found a lot of things in ML language or even in OCaml, really. But one thing I really like to joke at, I should learn French for have more options because most of the
Yeah.
content in OCaml is in French, and I really don't
Yeah.
understand.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, of course. The origin. One question about the languages. How do you speak so many languages? Like, what's the secret story about that?
In fact, I speak only Portuguese, English, and Russian. And Russian is still
Right.
learning. I worked some time in Argentina, but what I was doing there was Portuñol. So
Right. Right. So, but how many people do speak Portuguese and Russian?
well, in fact, I was thinking about I have to learn something different from something that like Portuguese or English,
Right.
and Russia is very isolated part of the internet. They mostly use other websites like Yandex or
Yeah.
VK. And then I thought, whoa, would be cool learn Russian to access all this information that it's
Wow.
outside.
Wow. Seems brave. Absolutely. Right. So how my next question is more like how can you like from the early days where you did the transition from F sharp to OCaml, um, how you decide to create content for the people? Like when was the moment that you thought, okay, there's missing content. I can as a newbie, because if I'm newbie to the language, I can be like more close to their experiences. How me, like why me? How are you gonna do it?
I usually was creating content a lot of years ago, but most of them no one cares.
Right.
I just write and mostly few people read. But then I decided to write a tutorial on Camel. Initially, I was thinking do it in English because even in English there is not a lot of content. But then I thought, okay, but there's not a lot of content in English, and even less in Portuguese or even less in other languages that outside this. And
Right.
initially I thought I have to write a tutorial about F sharp that I learning and I liking to learn, and I start to write it. But then was a lecture of Eduardo in NFT community Discord server some uh,
Right.
time ago. And I was there, and people start to ask, "Please, Eduardo, do OCaml for noobs. Please, Eduardo, do OCaml for noobs." And then I thought, okay, I can do that.
Right.
And I take all the content that I was writing in F sharp, translated to OCaml, uh,
Right.
translated to Portuguese, and,
Right.
and released it as OCaml for noobs. At that time, I didn't know that Hard Devs was a community and it was a project of them. I just followed
Right.
the people that were asking, please, OCaml for noobs. And OCaml and the Hard Dev community embraced the project, and it will lead to more people seeing the content. And then was the first time of anything that I wrote that had a lot of people reading and following.
Right. Right. Totally. So what's the hardest thing to learn about OCaml? Like, what's the hardest thing personally you felt that was a barrier?
Okay, the most hard thing to learn about OCaml. I think that modulus was something that I didn't figure out until
Right.
some point programming in OCaml.
Right.
Uh,
How does model work in F sharp? Or
it
do they have
yeah,
models?
modulus is especially part of strange part of F sharp because they work
Okay.
with namespaces and modulus.
Right.
So they have both, and they may overlap sometimes. Most of the time, how I was used to use namespaces from other programming languages, I was using primarily namespaces, and I didn't go very deep in this part of models until I have to really program in OCaml and do things like functors and everything in OCaml.
Right. Right. And what's the hardest thing to teach about OCaml? Because you kind of have like the cheat code of like you come from a very functional programming that it's easy translatable. From a person that comes from C or comes from JavaScript, what's the hardest thing to teach?
I think that depends on what the background of the people who is coming. Most of the time, it's the functional thinking itself, because most of people who program in C or program in Java usually do it in a way that they use a lot of state, and to start to think in immutability and in functions, it's a little steepy in the start.
Right.
There are a lot of content that's good for it. One is how to design programs. That it's a program of education in Lisp. But this year in the International Functional Programming Conference, there was a teacher that showed it in OCaml, including. Like
Right.
you can use it. It's primarily writing in Lisp, but you can use other languages.
Right.
And this first step in start programming functional, it's a little hard to bring people that never did this before. But after this first step, it's a lot easier to go after. And people who are used to dynamic typing languages sometimes have problem in start to think with types in the
Right.
first moment,
Right.
because types really have to make you think a little before start to declaring things and like that.
Definitely. Definitely. Yeah. Do you see that many? Like in our case, it's more like the JavaScript people that comes from a typing point of view where they want to declare arrays and strings all over the place, right? Like that's kind of like the method
That's what,
to
yeah.
define stuff, right? Like you define strings here and there, you just like define arrays here and there, and they might realize that they want an object. Sometimes they put objects here and there, but again, objects, arrays, and strings are good. There's nothing bad inherently for them, but they're very far from being safe. Um, how you translate those concepts that like it's a kind of like a complex question, I guess, but there are many concepts that match one to one from language to language, right? Like you can go and say, oh, in Elm or in Haskell, a record, it's a record in the Elm system. Might be some differences, of course. Like Elm records are extensible, the other ones aren't, but doesn't matter. But it's easy to map. I can onboard someone from Elm very easy in OCaml. How you translate those concepts that doesn't match, like that look similar but doesn't match, right? Like how you can go to a JavaScript program and say, oh, use a tuple because it's better, because it doesn't have an index, it's easier to pass, blah, blah. Like how you define those pros and cons from a person that never needed a tuple on the first place? How you would start teaching them those basic concepts for us?
Okay. Some time ago, I interviewed Fake Nichols about HeyScript in a channel here in Brazil. This is the reversal interview. And there was a time when I really asked him about something like that, the translating things that don't match exactly what people are using. I think that is work you have to do to show what is like and what's not like. You have to present what he can map of this concept and be clear that it's not fully mappy. It's not, you can do a total mapping of this concept to this, but it's similar in some kind. Like you have some types, and you have in Java enums. They are not they're not a total mapping of a concept to another, but you can think like something similar and have difference, but they in the end have a similar proposal behind this. I think that's the way I work with this when I found one of these concepts that don't have a real translation from one language to another, or from one prior concept to other.
Right, that makes sense. Did you end up reading like a lot of like academical writing for OCaml in order to kind of like round up the course for OCaml for noobs that I think we should share?
Yeah, let me guess the link.
Most of the time I read more informal content. I participate of academic community of OCaml more in events than really going after papers or something like that. Javier Leroy has a lot of papers that he wrote in the first website of OCaml that I really read for OCaml for noobs. But nothing like most 90% of the content that I read for OCaml for noobs or something like that was video content and informal content, blog posts or something like that. The only part of academic reading itself was the Javier Leroy papers in itself in the site of OCaml.org.
Yeah, like one thing that I personally happen to be like very happy about is that I coming from like kind of the front end, then I jump into Reason, and then I do some sort of like side-by-side OCaml Reason these days. So after 2 years or 1 year and something, I rewatched I believe it's the Cambridge, I don't know, some university, like kind of like 200 videos of like very basic of OCaml that goes very deep. I think the process, I need to share the link or find the link.
Yeah.
But it's like kind of like going back to the roots and trying to understand like many concepts that I took for granted. Do you have like, aside from like, is your course like the idea of that, like try to make the groundwork and not have like any advanced content, or are you planning to do OCaml for experts as well?
Yeah, in fact, I will send in private chat, but we can share with the chat in Twitch after. This course that you're talking about, they have a book also. They write first the book was Cornell University, and then they made a YouTube channel with the content of the book entirely in video. That it's go very deep in OCaml and very cool for someone that looking for content in English. I think it's one of best content now for complete overview of OCaml.
Yeah.
OCaml for experts, it's like I'm doing OCaml for noobs and don't finish the OCaml for noobs yet. I have a lot, some chapters I want to add to it. 3. One with a practical project for people who learn until this point now. Do something like, don't know, any project that could be useful for they start to understand how to properly use OCaml for doing things and building stuff. One about object orientation in OCaml that I didn't write until this point. I think that's cool to show that OCaml it's not a purely functional programming or something like that, that you have to do everything in functional programming. It have object orientation, and object orientation in OCaml, it's pretty good, to be honest. And one in the end about forging function interface with C, because OCaml it's not a great ecosystem with a lot of libraries and everything. And I think that added a chapter about forging function can help people to find libraries and other things to build things.
Combine them.
More, yeah.
Yep. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I think those. Yeah.
After doing this, I will take OCaml for noobs as complete. And then I start to think about doing something about like OCaml for experts or anything like that.
Right.
But I think that after this point, I will do OCaml for noobs and then content about doing things in OCaml. I don't know if I will really write advanced OCaml data structures in OCaml. I think more like build a video chat in OCaml. There's the blog post. Build a chat in OCaml. This is the blog post.
Right. Why do you think those accessible blog posts are in a community like OCaml?
I think that primarily most of what I learned was from blog posts from someone that wrote about it. And I think if it's not these people writing about how to do things or sharing what they did in the work or learning university in their blog posts, I would have nothing to learn OCaml. And I think it's very important that everyone that's learning or want to share what he learned, it's important because someone can find it and use it for something useful or learn something new that he don't know about what he's doing and something like that.
Right. And how's the OCaml community in general, in your opinion? Do you see that the OCaml community in general, like through the world, has a lot of differences from the community in Brazil or from other communities in other languages?
I like Paulo Torres. It's a OCaml programmer, and here from Brazil. And he jokes that the Brazilian conference of OCaml would have 2 developers or 12 at the best. So we're a very small community right now in Brazil. Most of the people who work with OCaml in Brazil really most of time do side projects. Like Paulo itself was building an extension for a program in the company he's working on OCaml. Was not a main project or something like that. We have a lot of work to do in Brazil to grow the community and really start to have projects that are important in OCaml for visibility here. Right now, we are mostly hobbyists and everything. And I think that all the work that Fake Nickels are doing with HeyScript, it's something important to do that because it's a very pragmatic way to help people start doing things and build things with ML itself and start to build this community around things. And for the international community, I see a lot of people that really have a job or have education in OCaml, something that it's a ground for he around this community and all these people and everything. I think community of OCaml in Europa or in United States, it's a lot more focused and they have a lot of more incentives to be in OCaml community. And that's the main difference. It's the incentive, it's the projects, the opportunities. And this is the things we have to start to build in Brazil, in America Latina, most of the time, for we start to really have a community, a great community here.
Right, totally. So if I want to start a community in Taiwan, what are the 10 first steps? If it's me, imagine it's me. Imagine that I move to Hawaii. Oh, let's put Hawaii. Imagine that I move to Hawaii and I want to do, I don't know, just have a lunch with people that talks OCaml. How can I get that? How can I create a community or build a community?
Yeah, outside my virtual communities and OCaml community itself, I found a local community in the very small town where I live. And the first steps I did was literally start to do lectures about technology, about starting with React here. And then I invited everyone to a lunch, literally.
Right.
And
That helps, I guess.
people watch the lessons that was on meeting at the time, and then after these lessons about React that we are promoting for free, we invited everyone for a lunch and start to talk about tech. And these people we were talking about tech, we convinced them to found a community here and start to invite other people to join. And
Right.
it was a very successful project. And when I think about what you should do for build a community about anything, not just technology or not just programming language, I think it would be more or less in this fashion.
Right. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. So what's like from the persons that are like from the people who see hard for devs all the time and we don't know what's that? How many of you are, what you do, and can you explain a little bit more like what your pitch for this community in Brazil?
Oh, okay. Hard devs is a community that usually I didn't know they too. Like when they start to write OCaml for noobs, like I said, I didn't know what was hard devs, and then I joined, and they are a lot of programmers. Watch mainly starters or newbie programmers, people who are learning, and they found this place in Discord and Twitch where they share knowledge and they help each other to grow in the studies and work related stuff. And they like how I say that they are very inclusive. They have people from everywhere here in Brazil. A few people outside too, and it's a great community. They have a lot of great content that they produce for help people to learn about most anything in technology. Right now, I think that Daniel is on Twitch writing backend for noobs. So if you want to know more about hard devs, they have the website, they have the Twitter profile, and you can follow Daniel here in Twitch. He always doing streaming, sometimes in English, sometimes in Portuguese, and they they are a great place for anyone who wants to learn something new or want to join a place with a lot of people that help each
Right.
other.
Right, that's cool. We have talked about a lot about community, about the side projects, about of learning. Let's jump on to the next big thing, which is like working for OCaml. Like how
Okay.
you now imagine that we are on timeline that you learn OCaml, you feel comfortable understanding, speaking, understanding, kind of like creating with OCaml. Now you want to, of course, like eat and have a rent and have a house. So you want to work in OCaml and have like both of two worlds. How how's the job still in OCaml?
Yeah, that's the main problem right now for someone
Right.
who lives in Brazil. Like I say, there's very few projects, very few people building real stuff in OCaml here. So most of the jobs that people will find will be outside of Brazil, mostly.
Right.
The OCaml job market has a really background in academics, even outside of Brazil. So most of things you will find to work with OCaml will usually ask some level of education, mostly masters in
Right.
most job posting that I saw there. Or a lot of experience. That's the case of Bloomberg or Thesis ecosystem or something like that. So right now it's a really difficult to find a job at start.
Right.
But I really believe that each time we will start to build more things in OCaml, and we have more opportunities in OCaml. In Brazil, recently, I heard about a company that adopted OCaml in a financial risk management product, and they start to hire OCaml developers, and that is a signal. A lot of other projects that I found that OCaml is really growing. I think that if you learn right now, you can pay your things with OCaml in 2021 or 2022. But I think that it's a great language. You can do a lot of wonderful stuff with it. And in the future, you really can find something or something like that more easily. Right now, you have to filter more job postings for find something. One great tool that I use for it is LinkedIn. There is a filter for job posting with language. I do it with OCaml. I receive more or less 25 job postings per day in OCaml. They exist. But it's hard to, for someone that don't want to go outside Brazil or academic job is not an option, can be or don't have a lot of experience as developer, can be a little harder to find something, but I believe that's possible. And in the future, I think that it will be a lot easier to find something.
Right. Yeah, it's amazing. So, does OCaml is being taught at the university in Brazil, or because you mentioned that the OCaml is still academic, of course, on the wall is very academic, but it has been taught in university, or not so much.
Most of universities in Brazil prefer to teach Haskell for some reason, but I know one university that teach OCaml. That is the Universidade de Ouro Preto. There is the Malaquias, that is the teacher. He's Portuguese, and he teaches OCaml for 3 disciplines. That is functional programming, compilers, and compilers too.
Oh,
makes sense. Yeah,
makes sense.
Yeah, good professor. Good professor for him. Yeah. Great. One thing that I wanted to ask is like, even though on the kernel's textbook or even in the YouTube player, there's kind of like one of first videos start saying that syntax is just an interface, and you need to get used to it, and you need to just pass through it and not trying to discuss syntax. And recently, years like Reason tried to challenge that, bringing like the syntax more closely to C style languages. Why syntax in OCaml is such a roadblock at the beginning, and why like everybody that passes through the syntax, I think everybody like us kind of like did. Why syntax is just such a wall at the beginning. And the second question is like why developers? Why do you think developers matter? Why do people care about syntax so much?
Okay, I think that syntax is something that is very personal taste about a language. And even me, sorry guys, but I really think that OCaml has a syntax a little more beautiful than ReasonML.
Controversial.
Yeah. I really like the syntax of OCaml. I think it's very clear to read. Sorry, guys. But I understand that reason syntax it's important because it's very more close to what C-style languages use, and this is something that is very useful to bring people that are more used to this style of writing programs. And I think it's just personal opinion most time. Like I like Python syntax also. People who disagree about it, and most of the time it's not a practical or something like that thing. It's just personal taste. There's one thing that I think that we can talk that it's something technical that annoy me. That it's some complex accidental things that happen both in OCaml and ReasonML, like hack. Hack is
Sorry, what do
something
you
that
mean?
recursive functions, like something like that. Keywords that don't have to exist.
Right.
Yeah, they don't have to exist. If the compiler was engineered for, don't need it. Like, I think that's like extra stuff is something that annoy me a little. But outside of this, it's well, personal taste at its finest. I don't think that there's a reason about one syntax be better of
There is
other.
a reason.
You said so.
That is a reason.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it kind
Jokes
of makes sense.
aside.
Like everybody likes to at the beginning bash about syntax and bash about syntax about other languages, saying, "Oh, Go is ugly" or whatever. Yeah, whatever statement that you believe on Twitter or on the internet. But at the end of the day, I found like very much like easy to reason about programming when we talk about like the semantics, like kind of the meaning of each part of the code, rather than syntax. How you make like people think about only semantics? How you move like pass through like the syntax like smoothly for not everybody care, and then talk directly about semantics in OCaml for Linux, for example.
Oh, first off, I found that most people would have a problem to see something very different at the first time, both in reading or doing things there, how things work. But the experience that I had, it's most people talking to me like, man, this is so clear to understand, so easy to do. And I was impressed because I presumed that if people never did this or never saw like something like that, would be a little strange for most people, both syntax or anything. But was really easy to people get used to OCaml. Most of the time, people who are learning speak and talk with me about how I was doing, and I, I don't have a really I don't really know about why this happened this way, but that it's how it goes. Most people don't have a lot of problem reading like a algorithm of quicksort, for example, in OCaml, and understand what it's happened, or to build something similar after seeing how it works. It's really easy to go with.
Oh, you are muted, Dave.
Sorry. Yeah. So leaving a little bit about like the OCaml now, you created as well like something called Universidad Libre, I believe it's called, free university for the English speakers, and that kind of like brought a little bit more than just a language or just like just one programming language. What's that project? Can you explain a little bit more what's this for the ones that we don't speak Portuguese and can't understand?
Okay. In fact, Universidade Livre nasceu born as also for Brazilian people. Also itself was founded by a Brazilian guy named Eric Douglas. Through the college, I was always learning something outside in MOOCs or something like that, outside college in the web. And doing all these courses and watching all these things, I start to think about, oh man, we can do open source society university in fully Portuguese. And I talk about that with some friends, and they say, no man, we don't have content, we don't have people interested, we don't have anything that is necessary to do it. And I say,
Right.
okay, I will just do it. I will just build a repository in GitHub and let
Right.
let happen. And then I did the first version. At the first day, as I released the project, I got a lot of stars and a lot of people sharing the project. And I was very impressed how fast the project was bringing attention. And I start then I think, oh man, it's not just something like open source society university. We can really be an open source society university in Portuguese. And then I started to build everything around that: the Discord server, the profiles, bringing more people, doing events, and everything related to that.
Right. And what
Yeah.
kind of content do you teach there?
Right now, we are producing a content about algorithms, the first subject that people studied when start the project. We are having the pipeline to produce content about data structures and object orientation in front too.
Right. Right. That's perfect. And do you think that the Brazil community is like easy to get into these courses? Does Brazil has a lot of like boot camps, a lot of like paid competence, like high paid, kind of like fast learning kind of these careers, or that's just between you and the university at the end of the day? How is the scene of education?
In fact, the programming paid courses in Brazil, it's a flame subject right now, because we have a lot of people that are doing these courses with not a great content and selling at high prices, and people are buying because the development jobs and the information technology itself, it's in high demand right now. And people are trying to start to learn how to be a developer or how to program things for automate something or something like that. And people that are looking for this content are find this courses paid that promise, or boot camps that promise high salaries and earnings with JavaScript or Python or something like that. And this is a hot topic right now, but we have a lot of free content. We have a lot of good paid content. We just we just don't have a place until this point where you can find a structured, free way to learn all these things. And I think that's where the Universidade Livre entered and found and gathered all these people for build this project together.
Right, that makes sense. That makes sense. That's cool. So I think that you do a lot of like work for the community, and that's kind of like everybody kind of like loves that, because like that's kind of like you put some effort on top of like free stuff or stuff that comes like to just for everybody. How does that feel? How does it pay you back? What are some frustrations? And how is that like unpaid work that you seem that you keep doing and you love? So
I don't know, man. I just be annoyed when I saw something that I can do better, and I simply choose don't do this. Like I participate in a lot of things in the university where I studied. I participate in a lot of things in the companies where I worked. If I can do something that will build something better than we have right now, I really need to do it. It's like it's annoying me to look something that can it's not at its potential and simply do nothing about it. Most of the time, the payment is the satisfaction to see things growing and see more people doing cool stuff with things. At indirect point of selling, I have some indirect things that it's good for my career or something like that for building all this open source stuff and writing a lot of documentation and build projects like Universidade Livre or OCaml for Noobs. But the most part of my interest in doing these things is really help to build a better ecosystem, a better place, a better community for me use it as well.
Right, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I think I don't know how many people are in the chat, but I think Cold Heart here kind of like love what you're saying. So definitely, I think there's a lot of people who love what you're doing, and even myself that I don't even speak in Portuguese. I'm jealous that you bring so much content in your language that inspired me to try to translate some of your work in other languages. So I think that's kind of, for me at least, is amazing, and I believe for any Brazilian learner, it's definitely an opportunity. So yeah, I think we're running perfectly on time. If you have any other question, Gabriel, or any other thing to add.
Yes, if you guys have any questions, send in the chat right now, and we will ask it. Camilo also had some question like recently in the bubble, the dev bubble here from Brazil. You said you went to LinkedIn and you could like add like Universidade Livre as like an actual institution on LinkedIn, like you talked to
Yeah.
the LinkedIn guys, and then they accepted the Universidade Livre as an actual institution that you could put on your resume, and people got like a bit angry about that because they said, you're lying, like this is not an actual course, an actual degree, right? And what are your thoughts on that? Like, I do think you're lying because you took a course online and then you're putting a university on your LinkedIn, or these people are just like complaining for no reason.
Well, some people asked that I would have to be to jail because that. Literally.
Oh man, for real. Oh
No way.
yeah, this one.
But
Okay, people.
Yeah,
Like,
internet jail. Internet jail for Camilo.
they were very upset about I use Universidade in the name of the repository. They were upset about I contacted the LinkedIn and let people add to as a graduation because you can put that it's just a online course if you want. I just permitted the people to add it as an educational institution. And I think that people go very far in the discussion and they lost a lot of reason about what's
Yeah,
the point of the thing.
people got really emotional about it.
Most people that was complaining about that didn't understand well what's the purpose of the repository. I think maybe they didn't even read the README at GitHub. And I really don't want to pick a fight about sharing courses online with people. Or like, if they think that what I'm doing is wrong, it's a personal opinion and it's not a crime. I should let clear that it's not a crime. And anything that someone have to complain about, it's merely opinion personal opinion, and it's okay. Everyone has personal opinion about things, and I just a little sad about people that was close. There was people in her devs that was asking for me to go to the jail because of that.
Oh, that's tough, man.
Yeah, but
Yeah, bitch too much.
but happens. Like
Okay.
everyone has something weird that happens sometime in life. My weird thing was people hating me for sharing education.
Right. That seems silly.
Yeah, definitely. It's kind of it's funny, right? Super silly, this kind of thing. Okay. Yeah, we have all the questions went through. There we had just one question here, but I think you already answered it in the beginning of the show.
Yeah.
So I think everyone is
There's a
fine
fun
here.
story about that. That I didn't tell what kind of project I was doing. Outside, I studied analysis and development systems at college, but I also studied architecture and urbanism at college.
Oh,
And
wow.
Wow. Okay.
Wow, the man is a
yeah,
Nice.
learning machine.
and I have a lot of interest in computer graphics because it's something that we use a lot in construction. And I started learning F Sharp mostly because I was writing extensions for programs of Autodesk like Revit.
Oh, that's cool, man.
And these programs, they support full .NET ecosystem. So
Oh, I
they
wasn't
support F
sure of
Sharp.
that.
And
Nice. I wasn't sure of that.
yeah,
It's crazy.
and the first part of my learning, I was learning functional F Sharp for taste and object-oriented F Sharp for writing these extensions for these programs.
Yeah, that looks fun. Oh, that's cool to know. I wasn't sure of it. Okay,
Totally, man.
so
So
yeah.
yeah, that was like a kind of like a masterclass on how to teach, create a community, and definitely stuff that I think we all assume that it's easy. We all assume that kind of like happens naturally, but at the end of the day, there's like a lot of work behind, and
Yeah.
seems easy from the side seems easy. I think it's kind of a theater effect. So yeah, thank you for your time, Camilo. That was amazing to meet you and to ask all of these questions.
I just have one thing to ask it before
Yeah,
we
Yeah,
please,
go
Dave, come to Brazil.
right,
ahead.
right. Yeah, I will visit Brazil. That's like one show on Garyl's house. I just invited myself. I think that's happening some point. So yeah, count on that.
Oh, we have one last question here. I think
We have
the
one
next
like spicy question.
last minute question.
Yeah, so yeah, just read it
Have it.
yourself, Camilo. I think that's kind of like a nice one.
Okay, I have a question about the architecture of OCaml functional projects. Usually when you join the art stream, I can see 500 files all over the place, and I have no idea what's happening. Is there some kind of patterns or something to follow in functional projects? There it is. In OCaml, every file is a model, and most of the time it's a hell to work with it if you don't have something to build it, like Dune. And when we work with Dune, usually people write that Dune files that help you to structure your project in a sane way. You can find this in OCaml for Noobs. There is a chapter about Dune, and there's a chapter about models. And in these chapters, I explain how you can structure your programs with these tools for have an architecture that it's easy to understand and easy to build and everything like that. Basically, you write Done files and you create a structure of the project as you want. You can do that. But usually what people do, like I read a lot of repositories of Eduardo, a lot of repositories of Antonio, is really structure every part of code in one great namespace, let's say like that. It's not really that. Some tests in another really great namespace, and a main outside scope that you use to run everything in the greater namespace.
Yeah, I think he mentioned like is there like a hexagonal structure architecture for a camel, or people don't care
Yeah.
now about it? And like
Patterns like that.
like hexagonal structure like with ports, repositories, but
Okay,
I think
you can.
probably that's what he mentioned.
Yeah. Okay. In these patterns of architecture, you can really structure using these tools as well. I don't know if there's a template or something like that already built, but if you know to build a hexagonal architecture or something like that, you can easily reproduce that with Drone and models in OCaml. So you can use most of the time the packages where I worked and everything didn't use something so structured like that. Mostly, I think it's because it's small projects, not big. If we were building a Bloomberg or a bank in OCaml, probably we will use something like that. But you can do it. I just don't know any template or something like that.
Right.
So
I
it also.
might not to add one thing is that usually Eduardo is like kind of like a chaotic mind, right? Like you
Yeah.
see him like
Yeah.
while he needs to
Just
solve a problem, let's say, he starts playing chess and then starts watching something. I
it
don't know.
just gets like roaming around the whole project,
Yeah,
right? Like touch no thinking
yeah,
about
he,
structure.
he
yeah.
write
And sometimes he starts
OCaml.
typing. Yeah, he starts typing, and sometimes he says, "Yeah, this should be pa 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 pa," and it's like, no, and then he deletes it. So there's definitely like some tricks, and at the end of the day, you would see yourself doing like not the same as Eduardo's. I think everybody has his own style, but you would see some of these patterns that if you look it from as a camera, that doesn't make any sense. But that I think it's just like thought process. So don't focus on how Eduardo does it. You can focus on at the end of the day what the result is, or yeah, just look at the structure of the code and see if like I don't know what this model does in a kind of a black box. I think that would help you a lot. Just lowering the pressure on seeing someone chaotic thinking and not looking you like that, or not looking you as say his method.
That's perfect. Great.
Eduardo is so chaotic that he's right OCaml without complete for Rust because he thinks it's more
Oh
beautiful.
man. Uh,
Or complete no, syntax highlighting for Rust.
all right. Yeah, I think that was fun to answer.
It's easy to also apply this kind of architecture for other functional projects. Yeah. Nubank, for example, uses a hexagonal architecture with closure. There's a lot of talks from them about how they do that. You can do it with any functional programming as well.
Cool.
Cool,
Okay,
guys. So yeah, thank you everybody to come, and thank you for like having us in a different time zone or different time. We'd push this into YouTube. You could share it with your friends, share it with entire Brazil. You can print our faces and sending by postcards. You can do whatever you want. We'll be happy, nevertheless.
Yeah.
So thank you for coming. That was really fun.
Yeah, thanks everyone. See you next year now. Bye bye.
Bye.
Okay, let me end the stream.